Hi everyone, Faith here again. We're going to talk about putting in a very simple drip irrigation system for this bed. We're just going to do a single bed, but know that any single bed can be linked together to a whole line of beds. They can be daisy chained together or watered in blocks. But I just want to give you a really brief, simple tutorial on how to install a low-cost and efficient drip irrigation system. You can get drip tape in all different lengths and different qualities and drip emitter distances. This is 1,000 feet of drip tape. They sometimes call it T-tape or a drip tape. This particular one is a 15 mil thick plastic, so it lasts for several seasons if you intend to utilize it like that. This particular T-tape has emitters every 8 inches or so. That's a good distance between emitters. Each one of these emitters, and it's basically just the plastic is overlapping itself, and there's a seam, and then there's a little emitter, whether it's melted into the seam or it's glued into the seam, I'm not sure, but it's a little emitter that will allow water to just drip, drip, drip out of the emitter. You can get different size emitters where they release a different amount of water, whether that's a half a gallon an hour, a fourth of a gallon an hour, just depends. So all of those details are things that you need to make a decision about in your area, in your climate, with your rainfall averages. So we are in Southeast Iowa. We get about anywhere from 34 to 37 inches of rain annually. We have a very good amount of water in our area. It's becoming more sporadic, and we need to plan for those drought months in the summer. It has been pretty common lately where the rain will stop at the end of June and maybe not come back until, or really come back until September. And so utilizing an efficient drip irrigation system can help you save money and also save your garden. So what we're going to do is measure your drip tape. And again, I'm pretty low key and pretty simple about things. So the way I measure is in place. So I've got 2 lines already laid down. This bed is 4 feet wide. I'm going to put 3 lines on this bed. We've got those emitters every 8 inches, so that means that you're going to have a circumference of water that will pretty much be about 8 inches. And it, depending on how long you let that system run, the depth of that water will depend. You want to orient the tape with the emitters towards the soil surface. And instead of buying, the little end caps for the T-tape, you can just tie a knot. The pressure from your water will lock that in place. I also use these ground staples to hold the T-tape in place, and I'll just tie another knot around the ground staple. That'll give me another feeling of confidence that I'm not going to blow open this line and waste water. When you have a drip irrigation system, it's really important that you check on it and you listen for any leaking water. You watch and make sure. You just get to know it. How does it work? How much water is being emitted in an hour? Is it leak prone? If you leave your drip system out over the winter and rodents are going to, they're going to be searching for water when they're in desperate need. And if you've got a little bit of residual water left in your drip system, they will chew holes in your drip system to get to that little bit of water. So just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to measure by pulling it down and just cutting it. Just a regular pair of scissors will cut that. So in order to connect this, I'm going to need 2 T's, an L, and a swivel. These are 5/8" fittings. Anywhere they sell drip tape, if you're getting it by a 100-foot roll or a 1,000-foot roll, that same location generally is going to carry these emitters. I'm going to need a T in the center. I'm going to need a T on the end here, and I'm going to need a elbow over here. If I were daisy chaining these together, it would be all T's, and ideally I would not be using a piece of T tape as my source water line, but for this particular installation, it's what I have on hand. It absolutely works. I did it for a long time like this, but you can get 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch hard irrigation line that does not have any emitters in it, and it will last for a very long time. You can replace your T-tape in 5 years or whatever, 2 years if it's an 8 mil. The 15 mil does last for a really long time if you take care of it. UV will break it down, so we'll talk about that. Again, these are 5/8" inner diameter, and these locking fitters, Permalock, there's a lot of different brands, but basically they've got a little thread on them which will allow you to lock that T-tape in place. It's really strong. You want to make sure those are cinched down pretty tightly, and again, you want to make sure you're not kinking your T-tape. Kinking it will prevent it from supplying the water that you need, so don't twist it up. Try not to anyway, and just check it. Test it out. So real quick, I'll just go through and put all of these together. There's a little barb on this Permalock L. Same with all the other fittings. There's a little barb. You get the T-tape up over the barb and then you tighten it down. And being that now I have a completed line here, I'm going to go ahead and fasten it to the ground. Check your connections, make sure they're strong. And then I'll use another one of these ground staples. You can make these yourself with tension wire that you can get at any farm and feed store. The 9-gauge wire will work just fine. So now we're going to do the center T. Again, just dial it back so you see the whole barb. Open up your T-tape just by pinching it. Try not to make too many creases or bends in your T-tape, because again, you know how a water hose, once it gets kinked, likes to stay that way. Orient your emitters to the ground. Now I'm going to just cut. I'm measuring. I'm just going to cut my T-tape. Slide it over the barb, tighten it down. Do the same here. Great, so now I have another line complete. I'm going to fasten that to the ground. If you have enough of these, just put another one right in the center to keep it in place in the line so that it doesn't get pushed around or something when you're weeding or something like that. Stepping on the bed, don't step on the beds. Okay, now orient that emitter to the soil surface and make that cut. Open your barbs, your fittings, expose your barbs. You can certainly use a lot of different small emitters with little 1/4 or 1/4 inch supply lines and go to particular plants and all of that. But if you're just trying to get something simple in place that's low cost, pretty efficient, I find that T-tape's the way to go. You can get a round, more a thicker round. It's almost like the supply line, like the 1/2 inch supply line, but it has emitters in it. If you can find that at a cost that works for you, by all means get that. That's a 10-year product if you take care of it. And when I say take care of it, be very careful when you're using your digging tools, when you're using your harvesting tools. You slice through this, you're going to have either a high water bill or a big mess, and you'll regret that. So be really careful. Teach whoever's gardening with you that there is T-tape in place. It's pretty thin, can be damaged by a shovel or a sickle blade or a harvest knife or a hori-hori, something like that. All right, and so now I'm just gonna put this, again, ideal would be using a 1/2-inch round supply line, but being that I didn't bring that with me today, we're just going to use the swivel, this T-tape to attach the swivel. And the swivel is 5/8 inch barb and a female hose end swivel that'll go onto your water hose. You just attach your water hose here, and there is a washer in there, and then you can supply your bed with water. Being that this is a very small bed and a lot of water potentially, depending on the pressure on your hose, could come through this at one time. You want to be mindful about that. You can get gadgets like a pressure reducer for your hose. That's advisable. You want to kind of bring that pressure down so that you don't blow the ends or blow the fittings for your system. You can get one of those for $10 or so. They're really pretty simple tool. But if that's not in the budget, or if you don't have the opportunity to grab one of those, just be mindful that you don't want to run full pressure through that hose. Crank the hydrant handle down just a little bit. Check it, watch. Make sure you're not blowing your fittings when you attach your water hose. I think somewhere in that 15 to 25 pounds of pressure is going to be a pretty good amount. You'll probably go up to 30, but don't go too high on the pressure, and make sure your fittings are locked down tight. And when you see the drip tape fully expanded round, when it's full of water, it'll expand and become round. Watch and see if you have any leakage around any of your fittings. You want to make sure you make a clean cut, a straight, clean cut with your T-tape so that you don't have an uneven attachment point. When it goes over that barb, if you've got a diagonal there, you're going to have a leak over here. Watch for leaks and watch your tools. Don't puncture your T-tape. One reason why you might puncture your T-tape is you're going to do what I'm going to do right now, is you mulch this bed. You can't see what's going on. But I want to have the soil surface hydrated and not necessarily have all my water evaporate through my mulch. And so be mindful when you're doing your planting, when you're doing your weeding, when you're doing your harvesting of whatever, mindful of your T-tape, mindful of your drip system, and everything should be great. Always come out with a listening ear when you turn your irrigation system on. Listen for leaks. Just listen for hissing water. If you hear that, start searching. Search for the leaks. Don't waste your water, especially if you are irrigating with rainwater. It is so very, very precious and so very, very important. If you're collecting your rainwater, be very mindful not to waste it. Always listen for leaks. Say you do have a leak, and this is where it could get expensive if you start using a pitchfork in your beds and you poke many holes in your drip tape. The fittings are more expensive than the tape, I'll tell you. The fittings can be more expensive than the tape. A fitting like this, depending on how you buy it, if you buy it from a wholesaler, you're gonna pay $1.40, $1.49 for this. If you buy it retail, you may pay $2.90 for this. And so this is just a coupler, and it will repair a line if you poke a hole in it. So you can very easily take, one end and the other end, if you've poked a hole in it, cut a clean, straight cut edge and put your repair kit in place. But know every time you put one of these down, it's $1.50. So be mindful not to poke holes in your drip tape. If you end up having more than one of these in a short run of your T-tape, take that piece of T-tape out and replace it entirely. It'll be more economical in the long run. You can save it. This is pretty useful stuff. Great for, you know, fold it in half and, you know, put screws. You can use it as a washer. You can use your T-tape as a washer. You can use your T-tape as a protector if you are having to train trees. You can use it, you know, to protect the branch from the wire or the string. You can use it like hose in a lot of ways that you might use hose around the farm or the garden. Don't waste it. It's always good to save pieces that are of a certain length, whether it's, you know, 5 or 6 feet, save it because you might have a short run that you need to use it later if it's still in good condition. But best just not to poke holes in it. Thanks.